Hello, folks. So, in this video, I wanted to quickly talk about backups. So, when you want to do a backup, you usually do a backup so that in case something goes wrong, you can actually restore. And people do different kinds of backups. I have learned primarily, say daily backups or backups that can actually help you restore to any point in time. So point in recovery or something, PITR. And then what level of backup? So there is application level backup. For example, at the application level, you run a command, you get the backup, and then there is disk level backup. Basically, you take a snapshot of the disk, but then you have to ensure that the processes are not running anything while you take the snapshot, because if they're running something, it will halfway get like it's trying to write ABCD on the disk, and when it writes AB and then you do a snapshot, later if you restore it will go wrong, it'll be corrupt. So it's better if you stop all the processes or something. And then even with disk based backup, when you do increment, does it take a snapshot of the disk in an incremental manner? I think cloud services do this of sorts. They ensure that it's the storage used for the snapshot is optimal. So if you take a snapshot when data ABCD is written on the disk, later it writes EF, so totally it's ABCDF. I think somehow it is able to ensure that only EF is stored. I'm not sure, but something of that sort, like some blocks of the disk or like some parts of the disk, something like that, right? I'm going to read more about it and probably talk more in depth about it. So there is disk level backup, there is application level backup, so specific to the application, and then disk is like any application is just going to write data to the disk and you just take a backup of the disk. In memory applications, you can't do much. Either you'll have to do a save to the disk. For example, Redis has a BG save, background save, I think. And then Redis is a in-memory thing usually, though it can be used in a persistent manner with disk. And then apart from application level and disk level, if you're running on something like say Kubernetes, say an orchestration system, Kubernetes has some resources. Say according to the Kubernetes API server, these are resources, API resources uh, for maintaining configuration or maintaining how to deploy your application and whatnot. So these are basically you can consider them as YAML files or JSON files, or basically YAML data or JSON data. It's better to back these up also in case say your Kubernetes cluster itself has some problems or it goes down or someone deletes some of the Kubernetes resources, then you need to actually keep a backup of it so that you can actually restore it. Usually people keep these YAML files and all that in their Git repos. If it's not there, it's fine. You can still do a backup. So there's this system called Velero. It's popular. It can do a backup of Kubernetes resources and do disk level backups. In a Kubernetes environment, it can actually take a snapshot of the disks that correspond to some persistent volumes in Kubernetes and that are actually satisfying some persistent volume claims. And then you can restore them and it will just entirely restore the Kubernetes resources, say config maps, secrets, deployments, stateful sets, anything, right? And then I'm assuming it won't take a backup of replica set and all if it's going to do a backup of the corresponding deployment. So if you just get the deployment back, um, Kubernetes is going to take care of ensuring that the replica set is created, because the replica set controller or like deployment controller is going to just take care of things and create the replica set, and then replica set controller is going to take care of creating the pods and all, right? So even daemon sets, like any resources you have, even custom resources, I think Velero will be able to back it up. How does it back it up? So it backs it up in S3. So you need to ensure that the Velero has access to S3 or something like that, some object storage. And then also I believe, because if in different clouds or private clouds and all, I'm not sure what you can do in private clouds and all, or clouds that are not so popular. And then for disks, it does disk snapshot. again using cloud APIs, I believe. So yeah, which makes sense. And yeah, I mean, this is on Kubernetes though. But in general, this application level backup and disk level backup, and how you do it depends on how your disk runs, how your application runs, application context, and all that. For example, for Postgres, you can do a PG dump. To restore, you can do a PG restore and whatnot, or you can run PSQL commands. I think I'm not sure. No, PG dump. I think you can only do PG restore, I think. So yeah, I mean that's what I wanted to talk about backups. Some basic stuff. Because I have been working with backups now for Vault, HashiCorp Vault, and I'm looking at how we can actually do it. Look at official tools and whatnot. And also, do we have to create custom tools for application level backup and whatnot? What are the pros, cons? I'll probably talk about it. We are running HashiCorp Vault on Kubernetes, so I think a custom tool will be okay in the sense that you can do a dump of all the data, like say secrets engine. We have a KVV2 secrets engine, which is key value store version 2 in secrets engine, and then we have Kubernetes authentication method, which has configuration and roles and all that. And then there is a what is it? There are some policies, vault policies, right? We can do a dump of these in the form of JSON or YAML or some protobuf format or whatever, right? And then import them using and then use Vault APIs again and import them and just create the backup and restore only for these three stuff and nothing else. Why? Because let's say we use Velero because we are running it on Kubernetes and it has good integration with Velero, as in the Helm chart for Vault we use and whatnot. So not Helm chart, sorry, the custom resource and whatnot. So Velero, it just you just need to say Velero enable true, and it'll put some annotations here and there, and Velero will just work for it, right? So it has some pre backup stuff and post backup stuff. For example, it'll freeze the file system, and also that Velero can actually do a volume snapshot, right? So, but then let's say Kubernetes, all these resources are deleted, or it's a let's say there is a production thing, it goes down, you have a backup of it separately, you bring it back up. Now when you bring it back up, how do you bring it back up? So let's say you use the Velero restore command or stuff like that, it brings it back up, but then how do you maintain it after that? So we currently use Argo CD, Argo continuous delivery. We have YAML files in it and we manage our resources with that. We have to then import all these restored YAML files into Argo CD somehow and ensure that Argo CD is in sync and does not deploy another vault and maintain it. Instead, it and understands that there is already one vault and you just need to maintain it from here on and not some completely new vault. So this is similar to importing resources on Terraform, I think, into the Terraform state and all that. Similar to that, importing something on Argo CD, but not create something new of it, but just ensure that hereafter you can manage it with Argo CD, right? Because the custom tool we build will be just for custom application level dump of all the data we need, and then application level import of all the data we need. And then after that, to maintain it, say to configure the number of replicas of Vault, though it's an HA setup, and then say different configurations and whatnot, we will use Argo CD. We will not use kubectl commands. In which case, we need to ensure that Argo CD has the same exact thing getting imported but not getting created and all, but just because usually what happens is you put the information in Argo CD and then Argo CD creates the resources for you. In this case, the existing set of resources have gone down, so you actually used backup and you used the backup that you created long ago, you restore it. But then that restored backup has to be maintained and it has to be maintained in Argo, that is the standard. So it's a tricky thing. Let's see how we solve it. That's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.